X-Men 97 Season 2 Episode 5 is officially here, so let's just get right into it. Because today we're talking X-Men 97 Season 2 Episode 5 breakdown and review. But before we get into anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Alright, so getting right into it, some of the things that I liked about this episode, the dynamic between the Weapon X team was really cool to see. And we got a couple cool details about their past. And one of the coolest details to me was that Wolverine and Lady Deathstrike actually had a relationship in the past. And now this might be a little bit biased coming from me, considering I am someone who absolutely hates the romance that Wolverine has with Jean Grey, or rather the love triangle that he often has with Jean Grey and Cyclops. So anytime we're introduced to another love interest for Wolverine, I will completely be on board with it, because if it means that there's no more love triangle, I am absolutely ecstatic. However, unfortunately, we do see that Wolverine still clearly has extreme feelings for Jean Grey, and we actually get to see that a little bit later on in this episode. However, I will get to that in a bit, because speaking of Lady Deathstrike, I really loved her interactions with Morph specifically, and the compassion she was showing for him, someone who was a stranger to her. However, throughout the episode, she addresses him as Tomo, and over the course of the episode, we get to hear why she is calling him that, and she talks to him about this Japanese lore, and this character who was Tomo, someone who was so blindly loyal to the samurai hero, and it ended up costing Tomo dearly. And although Lady Deathstrike does seem like someone who is pretty cold-hearted, this is showing a deeper layer to her character. She's showing a tremendous amount of empathy for Morph, someone who is just a total stranger to her, and yet still throughout the events of this episode, she continues to show him kindness. And that was a detail that I really liked, especially considering what ends up happening by the end of this episode, and Morph even eventually realizes that, yeah, she was right. And I feel like we are going to see a drastic shift specifically for Morph moving forward. But since I'm talking about Morph, that does bring me to another thing that I absolutely loved about this episode, and it's something that I absolutely love about the character of Morph in general, and that is he is literally a cameo machine, and I absolutely love it. Thanks to Morph, we've gotten to see so many awesome Marvel characters and so many little Easter eggs and teases to potential characters that we might see, or little nods to characters existing in this universe. And this episode gave us a ton of them, from the Thing to the Silver Samurai to Deadpool showing up. Now, I do have a little bit of an issue with Deadpool showing up, not because Morph can't turn into Deadpool. However, it did make me wonder why the actual Deadpool wasn't part of this Weapon X team that Wolverine had put together. It was a little bit of a bummer and kind of a letdown, because Deadpool is a character that I definitely wanted to see interact with the X-Men 97 characters. So while it was really cool to see him cameo, I do wish we actually got the real Deadpool in this episode, but because we didn't, I guess I will take the cameo instead. However, speaking of cameos, we also got Morph turning into Spider-Man 1994, someone that we got to see appear in Season 1 of X-Men 97. And seeing Spider-Man 1994 now recreated once again in the X-Men 97 animation style was so incredibly cool. Seeing him flip around to dodge all the enemy attacks, as a huge Spider-Man fan, made me really happy. However, another thing that it did do, it made me want a Spider-Man 98 probably more than anything else. It does seem like X-Men 97 is trying to create and cultivate this entire Marvel animated universe, and I feel like they have a golden opportunity to bring back Spider-Man 1994, similar to how they did with the original X-Men series with X-Men 97. And I feel like if they were to bring back Spider-Man 1994 and do a Spider-Man 98 type of series, fans would absolutely love it, and you could have him cross over with so many different characters, not just characters from the X-Men like we saw him do in Spider-Man 1994, but we could also see him expand and interact with other characters. Now, there would be a couple issues that do arise. However, they're issues that you theoretically will eventually have to solve anyway. And one of those issues would be how Captain America is even in this time period at all. Because if any of you remember from the original Spider-Man 1994 series, Captain America did appear in that series. However, theoretically, he shouldn't be able to be there. He was trapped in a portal when he and Spider-Man were able to defeat Red Skull and Electro. So theoretically, he should still be in that same place. And if he's not, then the Red Skull should be out and about. That was the whole reason that Captain America made that sacrifice in the first place. So I feel like that is something that would have to definitely be addressed. However, I feel like fans would be really willing to accept pretty much any explanation, even if that explanation is that Captain America did get out, but Red Skull did too. And maybe that is another looming threat for this animated Marvel Cinematic Universe that they are cultivating. I feel like a lot of fans would definitely take that as a trade-off explanation if it means they get some character interactions between the animated Avengers, the animated X-Men, and Spider-Man 1994. But getting back to this specific episode and talking more about Morph and his transformations, him turning into Scott to goat Wolverine into coming out was absolutely hilarious. Him acting as a version of Scott who was just more arrogant and saying pretty much anything and everything that he knows would absolutely get under Wolverine's skin was absolutely hilarious. And it just highlights how close of friends they truly are, because he knows exactly how to rile up Wolverine. He knows how to get in his head, and he knows the things that would piss him off the most to lure him into any situation that Morph wants. And lo and behold, it absolutely works. And I feel like overall, this episode was really impactful for Morph specifically. I feel like it was a big way to show Morph growing as a person, and I feel like he's going to have a drastic character shift throughout the rest of this series. Throughout a lot of the time that we've seen him in X-Men, he's been attached to Wolverine. He's had a great friendship and a true bond with Wolverine. However, in my opinion, this episode showed that Wolverine doesn't have the capacity to value that true friendship. He literally lied to Morph and said they were going to this facility to stop this scientist, when in actuality, all they were doing was trying to get Wolverine his adamantium skeleton back, which, keep in mind, they ended up doing to save Wolverine's life. Morph decided to stay behind and make sure they saved Wolverine, and they were able to do that by injecting him with the adamantium once again. So Morph decided to risk his own life to save Wolverine, after Wolverine decided to do something incredibly selfish and incredibly deceitful. He literally lied to everyone there, including Morph, as to why they were there in the first place. And those lies ended up catching up with them. Yeah, Morph didn't lose his life, but he felt a great sense of betrayal. And there were a couple other people who did end up losing their life in the process. Maverick and Kane were essentially cannon fodder. Yes, I know Maverick lasted a little bit longer than Kane did, but still, Maverick got taken out relatively easily. And while he was there, he wasn't really doing much of anything. The only people actually contributing in the combat sequences were Wolverine, Lady Deathstrike, Sabretooth, and Morph. The other two did realistically nothing in any of the fights they were involved in, and Kane didn't even participate in any of the fights. He was killed relatively early on, which in my opinion is somewhat of a bummer. However, considering the other members of this team, I feel like those two are probably the least important out of all of them. Now, speaking a little bit more about the combat, we do also see in this facility that not only are these insect creatures called the Brood, they're an alien species that is able to take over humans and take over mutants, but we also see someone else, probably one of my favorite X-Men villains, and that is Omega Red. And I really love the key detail that they decided to include when talking about him being there and asking if he's potentially infected. And they mentioned because his power is essentially being undead, it makes sense that he is immune to being taken over by the Brood. And we actually saw that as soon as he is broken free. And I absolutely love that as soon as he comes out of his chamber, he is just ready to throw hands. He goes right for Wolverine and just starts attacking him immediately. He doesn't assess the situation. He doesn't wonder why he was just broken out. He doesn't wonder how long he's been in there. He is just ready to throw hands with Wolverine. And I absolutely love that. I feel like almost every single version that we've gotten of Omega Red in animation has been so ready to fight Wolverine at any chance he gets, and I absolutely love it. He is a gigantic hater of Wolverine that to me even rivals the hatred that Sabretooth has with Wolverine. It's just a different kind of hatred. So anytime we get to see that dynamic, I will absolutely be here for it. Now, after this brief interaction with Omega Red, they are able to defeat Omega Red. They are able to implant the adamantium inside of Wolverine once again, officially getting rid of feral Wolverine. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm pretty disappointed with a couple of things with this episode. And first and foremost, I'm disappointed that feral Wolverine only lasted until episode 5, specifically because we didn't get to see a lot of him in this season. We got very little from feral Wolverine overall, whether that's from a combat sense or just his personality, and I feel like that's a huge missed opportunity. I feel like they could have explored a lot more with the character of feral Wolverine, rather than just putting his adamantium back inside of him once again. And I know that he's going to need his adamantium to battle against the forces of Apocalypse. I just feel like it could have maybe happened an episode or two later. That way we would get a little bit more of feral Wolverine in this season and not feel like we got teased with feral Wolverine and didn't actually get to see him fully fleshed out. But unfortunately, that is not my only issue with this episode. I feel like this episode, although it was kind of cool, felt a little bit out of place. I feel like after the episode that we had last week, where we saw the death of Magneto and the official rise of Apocalypse, I feel like this episode should have been maybe 1 or 2 episodes later in this season, because I feel like it just halted everything with Apocalypse. As we were starting to build and truly culminate in something great, it just immediately shifts and goes to this side quest-esque story for Wolverine. And because it was solely for him to get his adamantium skeleton back, I feel like that's why I have even more of an issue with it. And overall, I think so far this is probably my least favorite episode. Now, does that mean I dislike the episode overall? No, I would still probably rate this episode pretty high. lie, I just feel like compared to the rest of the season, it was definitely the weakest one so far, and it was the one that killed the most momentum. And I feel like aside from the growth from Morph, it really did nothing as far as the characters who are going to be a mainstay in the story. Yes, we got teases to potential characters showing up later. Yes, we got really cool cameos. And yes, we got a lot of character growth from Morph specifically. However, other than that, we didn't get anything else that's going to contribute to the overall story. Instead, it felt like a great deviation from the insane story that we've been building up to. And in my opinion, that wouldn't be as much of a shame if this season was longer than 9 episodes. However, considering the fact that it is literally only 9 episodes, I feel like they should be a lot more focused and they should be a lot more story oriented. And considering the fact that this episode felt like it was only designed to do 2 things: number 1, give Wolverine his adamantium skeleton back, and number 2, show a little bit more character growth for Morph, I feel like they could have cut some things out of this episode to make room for a little bit of the Apocalypse storyline, because we're still left with not knowing how Charles truly reacted to Magneto's death once he returned. We still don't know how Rogue is going to react to Magneto's death. Now we know she's going to go absolutely batshit crazy, but we want to see that, and making us wait an entire another week for that reaction is just a big mistake in my opinion. Now, one of the moments that I truly hated about this episode goes into my bias against the entire love triangle between Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Wolverine, and that's the fact that Wolverine was able to stab Morph. He was able to stab someone who was his best friend, who throughout this series has shown so much compassion towards him, but yet as soon as Morph changes into Jean Grey and says a few words to him, Wolverine just snaps out of it. That is the biggest slap in the face to Morph that I could possibly imagine. A bigger slap in the face than this entire betrayal of the whole mission that they're on in this episode. A bigger betrayal than Wolverine lying to Morph, because he was ready to kill Morph. Yes, I know he was infected, but he was letting that truly overtake him. And the only thing that was able to stop him from killing Morph was when he thought he was killing Jean. So the fact that he wasn't able to snap out of it when he thought he was killing his literal best friend, someone who has been shown on multiple occasions, mind you, to be comforting him, whether that is with his heartbreak over Jean Grey or other losses that he suffered. Morph has been there throughout everything, and Morph was the one who volunteered to go on this mission with Wolverine, because that's how much he values Wolverine as a person and Wolverine as a friend. And yet Wolverine repays him by being so okay with just stabbing him and potentially killing him, and only stopping when he thinks he's potentially killing Jean Grey. That is absolute bullshit, and it made me absolutely hate this version of Wolverine. I've had my issues with this version of Wolverine in the past, specifically because of the love triangle. However, I feel like this episode solidified my true disdain for this version of Wolverine, and it is a major shame because normally I am a big fan of Wolverine as a character. I like him in the comics, and even in other animated series like Wolverine in the X-Men or X-Men Evolution, I do enjoy him as a character. And Wolverine in the X-Men does also have him in a love triangle. He is just not a complete prick about it like he is in this series. So that whole sequence just really bothered me, and the fact that the only thing that snapped him out was Jean Grey, it just made him seem like an even more shitty of a person. Now, will he change and will he go through some character growth throughout the rest of the season and as the series progresses? Potentially, and I might be wrong. However, at this moment in time, he is probably my least favorite character, and saying that about Wolverine is kind of crazy, but it is true. He is the person that I have most issues with at this moment in time. But I'm interested to hear from all of you. What did you think of the episode? Did you have as many issues with it as I did? Would you want a Spider-Man 98? And am I right about Wolverine as a character, or is my personal bias truly getting the best of me? Let me know in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye.